the division that the Cowboys are a member of, is owned right now by the Washington football team, a team that may be known as the Washington football team indefinitely. I like the name. I like the move to get Ryan Fitzpatrick as the quarterback. Here's quarterback Ryan Fitzpatrick explaining today why he signed with the Washington football team.
Well, I mean, the number one thing I was looking for in free agency was just a chance to play, a place that was going to allow me to compete to be the guy. And so that was number one. And obviously Washington was a team that had that. And, aside from that, when I started to narrow it down, just I think Coach Rivera, the culture that's being created, the youthful energy in the building, playoffs last year, it was 7-9, but it was playoffs. And I think that this team, there's a lot of optimism and there's some good juju in the building. So I think a lot of those things factor into it.
There is a good vibe right now with the Washington football team. It seems like they are getting things right systematically, gradually. I still want to see what happens with the ongoing investigation into years of workplace misconduct. I want to see what the league does to Daniel Snyder. We can talk about that more in a second. As it relates to the football team, though, Ryan Fitzpatrick, now, again, you know how I feel about the Fitzpatrick, Fitzmagic, Fitztragic toggle switch. Every time we think he's good, he does something to convince us that he isn't. And then when we've written him off, he becomes Dan Marino in his prime. But they could have done a lot worse. Their options behind him are not great, and they're in a spot in round one where they hardly would have any confidence that they could just sit there and wait for a quarterback to fall into their lap. So they made their move. They were aggressive. And, again, they could do a lot worse than Ryan Fitzpatrick. And given that they're in such a weak division, he's an upgrade. Everything they've done so far this year is upgrade over what they were last year when they were good enough to win the division.
So I made an internal bet with myself whether or not you would go over or under 10 seconds before saying Fitzmagic to Fitztragic, and I actually lost the bet. Yeah, I know. It's unfortunate that it was over. But anyway,
I like to build up to it.
Yeah, you do, but it's
20.
inevitable. I know. Well, now I know. See, next time I'll do it
inevitable.
Like 18 and a half.
I do it because it is as inevitable as Fitzmagic to Fitztragic. That's why I do it. It's a metaphor, I think.
Well, maybe. But the weird thing to me about this, and this Fitzmagic, probably Fitztragic situation that could eventually happen, is that I don't feel like Ryan Fitzpatrick has gone to many teams that just went to the playoffs before. So in this way, it's almost a bit of a new situation. I mean, he said that this is the most sought after he's been in his career, after he went to Harvard. I'm not sure if you knew that, Mike, but, he's been in the league for over a decade and a half.
Don't know what you're talking about, and I want you to stop.
Well, he's an Ivy League guy, so am I. I guess I just had to throw that in there. But when you look at him now, he's just somebody that I think can help elevate that kind of offense, and he's better as a quarterback than what they had before. So that at least, when you have a good defense and you have guys like Curtis Samuel, Terry McLaurin that he's going to be able to throw the ball to, I think that helps him. And maybe that means that they can prevent the Fitztragic from happening maybe a little bit quicker than it would otherwise.
We saw him with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I think that was when the swing was the most notorious. That great game on a Monday night where he did have plenty of mistakes, but then he did some awesome things for the Buccaneers against the Pittsburgh Steelers when Jameis Winston was suspended a couple of years ago. But hey, I admire the fact that the guy has now played for more than 25% of the NFL's teams. He still keeps going. He's contemplated retirement in the past, but I think he's come to terms with the idea that there's only so many years he's going to be able to play. Just play while you can. And then when you're retired, you're retired. I got a lot of respect for what he's done, but we have to be realistic about the possibility that, yes, he may ultimately end up giving us some moments where we ask ourselves, what in the world is the Washington football team doing? Do we have the updated odds from PointsBet for the NFC champion? I assume Washington is still the favorite after winning it last year and making the most moves so far this year. The Giants have done some things. I don't know how I feel about what the Giants have done. I forgot Dallas. It's just because it's Dallas. Every year we think Dallas is going to be good, and every year they urinate down their leg, Miles.
Well, but if Dak Prescott is healthy, then that is probably going to make them better. I feel like if Dak Prescott had been healthy all last year, even despite how bad that defense was, that offense was really good. So they might have been able to go 8-8 and win that division if Dak Prescott were healthy for the entire season. And it's not to say that Andy Dalton did that horrible of a job, but when Dak is out there, he makes a difference, which is why he just got the contract that he received. So, I mean, to me, if you're factoring in the offensive stuff and you're thinking that Dak Prescott will be healthy, then it kind of makes sense to me that Dallas would be the favorite in that division.
The issue with Daniel Snyder buying out the 40.5% of the team owned by Fred Smith, Robert Rothman, and Dwight Scharr, the NFL approving next week. It's expected this will happen. The request by Snyder to bust through the league's debt ceiling so he can finance this transaction anywhere from $875 to $950 million to buy these guys out. That is an indication, I believe, and I've been told, that the league is not going to force him to forfeit the franchise. There had been some reporting a couple of weeks ago based upon preliminary or expected findings from Beth Wilkinson, who's been performing the investigation into workplace misconduct, that she would recommend a forced sale of the team. And Sims and I talked about this today, Miles, and I think it bears repeating to the extent that anyone didn't see the morning show and they're watching us now. And if you are, thank you for watching now, but why didn't you watch in the morning? You would have learned about chocolate-covered pretzels as well if you had watched in the morning. But I really do think the league is not going to force this guy to sell for these types of allegations because the other owners do not want that kind of a precedent. And there may be others who already, we don't know, but who would be worrying about, based upon lawsuits that have been settled that the league maybe does or doesn't know about, or people who could come out of the woodwork and just make allegations that maybe aren't completely true, but would be enough to get that unblinking red eye of the league office to focus on them next. So I think that has a lot to do with why Daniel Snyder won't be forced to sell. I expect him to be heavily fined. I wouldn't be stunned if he's suspended, although what does it mean to suspend an owner if you don't take away the profits that the team makes during the period of the suspension? But, you know, that is on one hand a good thing that they're cleaning up the messes that have been made in the past. It's part of this sense that the team's on the right track. But at the end of the day, Daniel Snyder owns 100% of the team. We'll see whether or not he's truly changed or whether or not he's just acting like he's changed because he knows that the alternative is, at some point, they're going to make you sell the team.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.